December 31st, 1942. Brisbane, Australia. Lieutenant Commander Dudley Walker Morton climbed aboard USS Wahoo for the first time as her commanding officer, and within hours, every sailor on that submarine knew their lives were about to change forever. The boat's first 2 war patrols had been disasters. Her previous commander had limped back to port with excuses about perfect weather and unescorted targets that somehow escaped. Several officers had requested transfers. The crew's morale sat somewhere between resignation and despair. Morton gathered the men in the torpedo room and spoke words no submarine commander had ever uttered. "Wahoo is expendable. We will take every reasonable precaution, but our mission is to sink enemy shipping." He paused, scanning the faces around him. "Now, if anyone doesn't want to go along under these conditions, just see the yeoman. I am giving him verbal authority now to transfer anyone who is not a volunteer. Nothing will ever be said about you remaining in Brisbane." Not one man asked for a transfer. Before we explore what happened next, if this kind of untold military history fascinates you, hit that like button and subscribe to Orders of History. We bring you the decisive moments that textbooks overlook, the single decisions that altered the course of entire campaigns. What Morton did in the following hours would transform not just one submarine, but the entire doctrine of American undersea warfare in the Pacific. He walked through every compartment of the Wahoo with a bucket of red paint and bright white placards. In the crew's mess, he mounted one. In the engine room, another. In the torpedo rooms, the galley, the control room. Every space where men worked, ate, or slept received the same message in bold red letters: "Shoot the sons of bitches." The posters weren't decorative. They were a psychological operation targeting his own crew, a constant visual reminder that this submarine now had one singular purpose: close with the enemy and destroy him. But Morton understood something most commanders missed. Aggression without capability is suicide. Motivation without innovation is wasted energy. So he made a decision that violated every standard operating procedure in the submarine force. He called his executive officer, Lieutenant Richard O'Kane, into his cramped captain's quarters. "Dick, from now on you are on the periscope during attacks." O'Kane must have thought his captain had lost his mind. Submarine commanders lived at the periscope. The scope was command incarnate, the captain's direct connection to the battle unfolding above. No skipper trusted a junior officer with that responsibility. Morton explained his reasoning with surgical precision. If O'Kane managed the detailed minutiae of the attack, the bearing, range, angle on the bow, torpedo spread calculations, then Morton could step back and see the entire tactical picture. He could make the critical risk decisions, coordinate multiple threats, anticipate enemy maneuvers. It was a command structure borrowed more from aircraft carriers than submarines, and it had never been tried in undersea warfare. The system did something else, something Morton understood on an instinctive level. It told every officer and enlisted man aboard that their captain trusted them completely, that he believed in their competence enough to delegate life and death responsibility. Trust breeds performance. Performance breeds confidence. Confidence breeds aggression. On January 16, 1943, Wahoo departed Brisbane for her 3rd war patrol, Morton's first as commanding officer. Their orders were simple conduct reconnaissance of Wewak Harbor, a major Japanese staging area on the north coast of New Guinea. Morton had a different interpretation of reconnaissance. The submarine had no proper charts of Wewak. One crew member had purchased a cheap atlas in Australia with a tiny indentation labeled Wewak on the New Guinea coastline. Morton studied that atlas like it was holy scripture, formulating an attack plan based on a map designed for schoolchildren. January 24th, 0800 hours. Wahoo's lookouts spotted the superstructure of a Japanese destroyer with submarine tenders clustered around it inside Wewak Harbor. Standard doctrine was clear submarines avoided destroyers. A destroyer had sonar, depth charges, and surface speed that made it a submarine's natural predator. The odds of survival once detected were calculated at 1 in 7. Morton ordered battle stations. "We'll take them by complete surprise," he told O'Kane. The destroyer was the Harusami, a 1,200-ton Shiratsuyu-class warship designed specifically to hunt submarines. She carried 16 depth charge throwers and 120 depth charges. Morton closed to 1,200 yards and fired 3 bow torpedoes. All 3 missed. He fired a 4th. It missed. Most submarine commanders would have broken off the attack, dived deep, and run silent. Morton had expended 4 torpedoes, revealed his position, and accomplished nothing except alerting every Japanese ship in the harbor. The Harusam's lookouts spotted the torpedo wakes, and the destroyer turned directly toward Wahoo at flank speed. Morton did the unthinkable. He ordered Wahoo to hold position and fire down the throat of the charging destroyer. Down the throat meant firing torpedoes directly at a ship steaming toward you at maximum speed. The target profile was minimal, just the narrow bow of the ship, maybe 30 feet wide. The closing speed meant the firing solution had to be perfect, calculated to the second. If you missed, the destroyer would be on top of you in moments, dropping depth charges directly down your hull. O'Kane worked the periscope, calling out bearings. Morton stood in the center of the conning tower, processing information from sonar, the torpedo data computer, the diving officer, the helmsman. His new command structure was being tested in the most violent way possible. "Fire 5, Morton ordered, his voice calm. The torpedo left the tube with a compressed air hiss. For 43 seconds, everyone aboard Wahoo held their breath. The torpedo struck Harusam directly amidships and broke the destroyer's back. The explosion was so violent that the ship's bow and stern began sagging toward each other immediately. Morton's crew erupted in cheers. They had just accomplished something unprecedented. A submarine had engaged a destroyer in direct combat and won. But Morton wasn't finished with this patrol. He was just getting started. 2 days later, January 26th, Wahoo encountered a convoy of 8 ships north of New Guinea. 2 freighters, a tanker, and 5 other vessels with destroyer escorts. Morton attacked with the ferocity his placards demanded. He fired at the freighter Fukwai Maru and sank it in 2 minutes. Then he turned his attention to the transport Buyo Maru, a 5,000-ton vessel carrying Japanese troops. The attack on Buyo Maru took 14 hours. Morton fired. The transport maneuvered. Morton repositioned. Fired again. The destroyer escorts dropped depth charges. Wahoo dove deep, circled, surfaced, pursued. At one point, with Wahoo's batteries nearly depleted, Morton surfaced the submarine in broad daylight with a hostile freighter shooting at his exposed periscope. He opened range while charging batteries, tracked to the target's mast with the periscope fully raised, and once the batteries were charged, closed again at flank speed. "Tenacity, Dick," Morton told O'Kane during the chase. "Stay with the bastard until he's on the bottom." The freighter required 4 torpedo hits from 3 separate attacks before it finally sank. That single sentence, "Stay with the bastard until he's on the bottom," became Morton's operational philosophy. It would be repeated in wardrooms and torpedo rooms across the Pacific Submarine Force. By the time Wahoo returned to Pearl Harbor on February 7, 1943, Morton had sunk a destroyer and an entire convoy. The submarine had expended every torpedo aboard and nearly all its fuel. A Navy band waited at the dock to greet them. Admiral Chester Nimitz himself was there. Morton had earned the nickname the One-Boat Wolf Pack. General Douglas MacArthur presented him the Army Distinguished Service Cross. Photographers captured Wahoo arriving at Pearl with a broom lashed to her periscope, signifying a clean sweep of all targets encountered. Flying from the mast was Morton's battle flag with its red-letter message, "Shoot the sons of bitches." 8 small flags beneath it represented the claimed sinkings. That photograph circulated through every submarine tender and base in the Pacific. The impact was immediate and profound. Before Morton, the American submarine force was cautious, conservative, hampered by peacetime doctrine that emphasized survival over aggression. Skippers wrote patrol reports filled with passive language about targets that escaped over the hill in perfect weather. After Wahoo's 3rd patrol, everything changed. Morton's tactics became required study material. His command structure, with the executive officer on the periscope, was adopted fleet-wide. His aggressive surface pursuits, his willingness to engage destroyers, his relentless tenacity in prosecuting attacks, all became standard doctrine. But more than tactics, Morton changed the psychology of submarine warfare. His placards, his battle flag, his transparent communication about the boat being expendable, all served one purpose: unite the entire crew behind a single, unambiguous objective. Every sailor on Wahoo understood exactly what their mission was and why it mattered. Other submarine commanders started creating their own morale systems, their own methods of fostering aggressive culture. The entire force shifted from cautious evasion to active hunting. Morton took Wahoo on 3 more patrols. His 4th patrol penetrated the Yellow Sea, an area never before patrolled by American submarines. In 25 days, he sank 9 ships totaling over 93,000 tons. It was a record that stood for aggressive lethality. Admiral Nimitz personally awarded him a Gold Star in lieu of a 2nd Navy Cross. But Morton's aggression, the very quality that made him legendary, contained the seeds of his end. On September 9, 1943, Wahoo departed Pearl Harbor for her 7th War Patrol. Morton requested permission to enter the Sea of Japan, the most dangerous waters in the Pacific. Permission was granted. October 11, 1943. Japanese military records state that an anti-submarine aircraft discovered a surfaced submarine in La Perouse Strait and attacked with depth charges. The submarine was holed and sank with all hands. It was Wahoo. Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton and his entire crew of 79 men were lost. The loss sent shockwaves through the submarine force. Submarine operations in the Sea of Japan were immediately suspended and would not resume until June 1945, and only then with special mine-detecting equipment. In post-war accounting, Morton sank 19 ships totaling approximately 55,000 tons. In terms of individual ships sunk, he ranked as one of the top 3 submarine commanders of the entire war. But his real legacy wasn't measured in tonnage. Morton proved that submarines could be weapons of aggressive offense, not just stealthy evasion. He demonstrated that command culture, fostered through transparent communication and visible symbols, could transform crew performance. He showed that innovation in command structure, delegating critical responsibilities to trusted subordinates, created tactical advantages that traditional doctrine couldn't match. His executive officer, Dick O'Kane, the man Morton trusted with the periscope, went on to command USS Tang and received the Medal of Honor. O'Kane credited everything he learned to Morton. When Admiral Charles Lockwood reflected on Morton's command style, he said, "When a natural leader and born daredevil such as Mush Morton is given command of a submarine, the only result can be a fighting ship of the highest order, with officers and men who would follow their skipper to the gates of hell." And they did. On Morton's final patrol, 2 Wahoo sailors jumped into frigid waters near La Perouse Strait just to retrieve a glass fishing ball their captain had mentioned wanting as a souvenir for his children. When Morton, overcome with emotion, Ask them why they'd risk their lives for such a trivial thing. They replied simply, "We just wanted to get you the souvenir, Captain." That moment captured everything Morton had built. Not just a submarine crew, but a band of men who would have done anything for their commander because he had made them believe in themselves. 79 men followed Mush Morton to the bottom of the Sea of Japan, but the tactical innovations, the aggressive culture, and the command philosophy he pioneered survived him and shaped how America fought the undersea war for the remainder of the Pacific campaign. Sometimes a sign on a bulkhead is more than just words. Sometimes it's a declaration of intent that changes everything. If you found this story as remarkable as we did, share it with someone who appreciates military history. Subscribe to Orders of History so you never miss these untold moments of warfare, and drop a comment below. Did you know about Morton's Shoot the Sons of Bitches battle flag before today? What other submarine commanders deserve this kind of deep examination? We read every comment, and your suggestions shape our future content. The best stories in history aren't always the ones in textbooks. Sometimes they're written in red letters on placards in the torpedo room of a submarine somewhere in the Pacific.